Okay, so we are in PokemonMeta.com to see the new cards coming in the new set, mini set that is. And let's review them. So first off, we have Mew. So 130 HP. That's to start, that's really good. You can take hits from 260 attack moves or 340 attack moves. You can also take one hit from Arcanine and one hit from Ninetales with Blaine. So there's some options there. It's a pretty decent, good HP. So the first attack, Psy Shot. For 1 Psychic Energy, you do 20 damage. I mean, that's pretty common, I guess, for basic Pokemon to start attacking with at the start. So it's okay, mediocre, I guess, but whatever. Now, the good attack is this one. For 3 colorless energy, you can use Genome Hacking. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon attacks and use it as this attack. So this comes into question stuff like what can you copy and what can you not. Because you can assume that you can copy Mewtwo's attack, Charizard attack to one-shot them. But can you really? I mean, it's really weird because if we search for Primeape, here you do copy the effect in which you do 60 more damage, right? Which is the effect of the attack. So why does Charizard doesn't count? Discard 2 fire energy from this Pokemon, and you have to discard it to be able to use it. So now that doesn't apply? I mean, I hope it doesn't. Common sense tells you that it shouldn't apply. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know how this rule is gonna work out. Hopefully it does copy them. And if so, you can, like I say, you can one-shot Mewtwo with its own attack. You can one-shot Charizard. You can just attack with a bunch of different Pokemon attacks. And so, the counterplay for Mew might be that the enemy doesn't play the second stage until they know they can attack and one-shot you. Because if they keep something like Charmeleon, if you copy this attack and hit him with it, it's still gonna be alive. So that's a good countermeasure to Mew. You just don't use your second stage until you're about to swing and knock him out. But now the counterplay for the counterplay in Mew part is that if you know the enemy has the second stage in hand and he's waiting for the perfect moment, you can just red card them. You can just red card them, play 1 or 2 copies of this in your Mew deck and just counter his counter. Pretty nice, it might work. And a second counter to Mewtwo is to use small Pokemon. Because, okay, you can attack big against big Pokemon. But against tiny Pokemon, you are gonna struggle. Let's say they have Mewtwo, right? They know you're gonna attack with Genome Hacking. They can just switch into Gardevoir. I mean, not Gardevoir, into Ralts. And now, what are you gonna do with Mew against Ralts? You can't copy it because you're gonna do 10 damage. 10 damage. And if you use this in a non-psychic deck, you can only attack with Psy-Shot. By the way, I didn't mention it, but you can play this in any deck because it needs just colorless energy. But the point still stands. Like, if the enemy uses small Pokemon, that's a good wall to stop Mew. And that's why you should combine Mew with some other Pokemon in your deck that can get rid of tiny Pokemon. So Mew gets rid of big Pokemon, and the rest of your deck should get rid of small Pokemon. What else can I say? 1 energy to retreat, pretty cool. You can use this with X-Speed, just retreat for free. And it's a really good Pokemon. It's pretty cool. I want I guess I'm gonna be using this with Pokemon that require little to no energy, because this guy requires 3. So maybe with something like Exeggutor or Greninja, or maybe something new from the pack. New pack. That might be a thing. Now let's move on to Aerodactyl EX. So stage 1 from Amber. 140 HP, pretty decent. You can take a few hits. I mean, except from big Pokemon, but in general, you can take some hits. So the ability. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. But they can evolve from their bench. So that's a bad part about this. So a lot of decks like Charizard, they evolve from the bench. Gardevoir, Venusaur, Blastoise. They all do that, so this card is not gonna be that good against those decks. But in the good side, first off, you can use this even if this card is in the bench. So just a passive ability that's always active. And secondly, you can combine this with stuff like sleep, paralysis, or even with a card like Arbok, right? The opponent now can't retreat. And more often than not, the way they retreat against Arbok, or the way they get rid of sleep or paralysis, it's by evolving. But now they won't be able to do that with Aerodactyl EX. So that might be a play. Maybe you can play this with something like Jigglypuff. I mean the new Jigglypuff. With something like Arbok, of course. Maybe new Pokemon that paralyze. There's some options there, so it's gonna be interesting. I want to use this card already, but Jigglypuff, and see how it goes in Arbok. And we also have Land Crush. So for 2 energy, 1 fighting 1, you can do 80 damage. Pretty good. 80 damage is pretty decent. You can 2-shot almost everything. And you're only 10 attack short from equaling something like Starmie. So pretty good. And that makes me think that you can also play this with something like Primeape instead of the other fossil we used. So might be good. 1 retreat cost, really good as well. 1 XP and it's gone from the active. So a pretty interesting Pokemon. And the fact that Amber doesn't count as a Pokemon means you can actually play Jigglypuff and always open up Jigglypuff. That might be interesting. I'm gonna try that out. And now we have Marshadow. So 80 damage, fighting Pokemon. For 2 energy, 1 fighting 1, you're gonna do 40 damage. And if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 60 more damage. So 100 damage instead of 40. And of course, we're gonna be playing this with Primeape, right? Primeape, if we use this with Monkey, the advanced Monkey that damaged himself, you're gonna be swinging with 100 damage and 80 HP Primeape. And the weakness about this is that it can get knocked out pretty easily with 80 HP. And that's when Marshadow comes into play. If they knock out your Primeape, you can just put Marshadow in the active, swing for 100. And if you're playing against Pikachu EX, you can one-shot it with Primeape and with Marshadow because of the super effective damage, right? 120 damage, 120 HP. Pretty good into Pikachu. I also can't wait to play this with Primeape. It's going to be pretty good. And now let's talk about Vaporeon. So 120 HP, that's perfect HP to survive 1 Pikachu hit. Pikachu is gonna hit you super effective, so 110 damage. You barely survive with 10 HP. Pretty good. And it has the ability Wash Out. So as often as you like, during your turn, you may move a water energy from one of your bench water Pokemon to your active water Pokemon. That's really good. You can use this with stuff like Starmie. So you can power up Starmie, then retreat it for free, and now you use Vaporeon to put all that energy into something like Articuno or Lapras EX and start swinging with them. It's pretty good. And you can also place this in Blastoise, of course, and also in stuff like just an Articuno deck with Lapras EX as well. You use Misty, power up Articuno, start swinging with him, and as soon as he has low HP, you can just put down another Articuno or another Lapras, retreat it for free with something like Leaf, that we're going to talk about it later on. And now you can put all that energy into that low HP Articuno to the new one in the active spot and keep swinging for 80. Just like that. It's pretty amazing. I mean, you can prolong the game for a long time just doing that. Now, the only problem is that if your active Pokemon gets shut down and it loses all the energy, let's say it gets one hit KO. Now that's a problem because if you lose the energy, then it's gone. And you better have another Misty in hand if that's the case. And we also have Wave Splash, so for 3 energies does 60 damage. Pretty bad for a 3 energy attack, but I guess we're gonna use this just as a finisher, like a last resort. So whatever. And a 2 retreat costs. Same, you can retreat this for free if you have to, with Leaf. Which, you know what? Let's talk about Leaf right now. During this turn, the retreat cost of your active Pokemon is 2 less. So this is exactly like if you had 2 X-Speeds in hand and you just use them both at the same time. I see a lot of people saying that this card is going to be pretty mediocre, but I think it's going to be super good. I mean, how many times have you wished you have double X-Speed in hand and it would have changed the outcome of the game? With this card, not only you have 2 X-Speeds in hand, but you have like 4 X-Speeds in hand. I mean, you can use this card 2 times in one game. So 4 X-Speeds as an example, right? Now, the bad part is that, of course, it's a support card. So if you use this, you can't use Professor Research or Sabrina or Giovanni. But this card, it gives you so much versatility. Like if you play this with something like, okay, we were talking about Articuno, retreat for free, then put all that energy into the new active. That's pretty amazing. But also something like Mewtwo, right? You have this Mewtwo with all the energy. It's about to get knocked out. You can just retreat it for free into another Mewtwo maybe, or into this guy or Gardevoir or whatever. And you still keep the energy to swing later on. That's crazy. That gives you so much versatility in which you can just put a Pokemon in the active, maybe to take some hits, and instead of waiting for the enemy to knock him out, let's say something like this Mewtwo or the Gardevoir or whatever, you can just retreat for free, they still are alive, and you don't need to waste your turn energy nor nothing else to retreat it. So you can use that energy to power up more your Mewtwo EX that you're gonna put in the active. That gives just so many options to play. So even though it's a supported card, I think this card is gonna see a lot of play. I mean, of course, it also depends on the deck. I mean, if you play this in something like Pikachu that only requires 1 retreat cost, it might not be that good. But even still, you can use this card as a 3rd or 4th, EX speed. So it might work as well. There's the option there. And yeah, so I think this card is going to be good. This is going to be one of the best trainer cards in the game. But hey, maybe that's just copium. Let's just wait and see. So now, Dedenne, 60 HP, electric. For 1 electric energy, you do 10 damage. And you flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. 1 retreat cost. So this card, to put it easily, is just going to replace Pincurchin in the Pikachu deck. This guy for 2 energy does 30 damage in the exact same effect. So now you don't require the second energy. You can use it just with 1. And the damage was not that important. So, I mean, it was in some cases, but you'd rather just use 1 energy instead of 2, right? For the exact same effect. And I mean, there's nothing much to say about this card. It's gonna be really good in Pikachu deck and maybe some new electric decks. Now let's talk about Tauros. So I see a lot of people hype about this card. 100 HP, that's as high HP as you can get in a non-EX basic Pokemon. So pretty good HP. Now, for 3 colorless energy, that means you can use this in any color deck. You can attack for 40, and if your opponent active Pokemon is an Pokemon EX, this attack does 80 more damage. So 120. With that, you can one-shot the Pikachu EX. And you can two-shot pretty much everyone else. It's really good. Okay, and also 2 retreat costs, pretty good. I mean, better than 3, so average 2 retreat cost. And I don't know what to think about this card. Like I said, I know there's a lot of people that are really hyped for it. But 3 energy to attack, that's way too much. Like, I understand you probably want to use this card just as a... in the mid to late game, just have this guy in the bench, power him up, and pull it out in the mid to late game. That's probably how you want to use it, and that's, I mean, it might work. It might be a good idea. Just like as a EX sweeper. But you clearly don't want to start with this guy in your turn 1 active spot. Because you might think you're gonna one-shot the Pikachu EX, but not really. Like, if you go first, Pikachu EX is gonna knock you out before you can attack. And if you go second, they can only just switch into a non-EX Pokemon. And so we go to our second problem with this Pokemon. It only does 40 damage. For 3 energies, 40 damage to no EX Pokemon. That's pretty bad. I mean, you can't even knock out Dedenne. And funnily enough, if Dedenne attacks you with 10 damage, and then next turn Pikachu attacks with 90, that's 100 damage, that's gonna knock you out. So my point is, this might be a good card, but for late to mid game. You don't want to start the game with this. And even in that position, let's say the enemy Pikachu use something like what's the name? Here it is, Zebstrika. This guy has 90 HP. So you need 3 hits, 3 attacks to knock this guy out. That's pretty bad. The fact that they can just switch to something like this and stall the game that much into your, I mean, you can call it the win condition Pokemon, your late game Pokemon, that's pretty bad. Now, of course, it depends on the situation. Maybe they have no time and they have to sacrifice Pikachu and that's it. So, I mean, let's just wait and see. I don't think it's going to be... I mean, it's going to be good, but not that good as people think. Or, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is super good. And let me know your opinion. If you agree, if you disagree, let me know. So, next card. Snivy. This card is gonna be as good as the evolution is, because by its own, this card has the exact same problem as Bulbasaur, in which it's a basic Pokemon of an evolution line that requires 2 energy to attack. That's pretty bad. Because if you go first, you can't attack with this guy until turn 3. And you only do 40 damage. So, not that good. Like I say, it will depend on the evolution. And I've heard in some comments, I mean, no, I didn't heard, I read some comments that the evolution, at least in the TCG, it has a similar effect to Vaporeon, but with grass energy. So you can manipulate grass energy in your bench and active. And that's gonna be an interesting effect for some cards in this list, like this guy and this guy. So let's talk about them. Dhlmise. I mean, I don't know. So 100 HP, like I say, same as Tauros, the best HP you can have for a basic non-EX Pokemon. So for 1 grass energy, you swing with 20, and if this Pokemon has 3 extra grass energy attached, so 4 energies in total, this attack does 70 more damage. So 90 damage if you have 4 energies. I don't know how good this card is gonna be. Like I say, if the evolution of this guy does that manipulating energy, it might be interesting. But if not, I can see this being played with Lilligant. You just have Lilligant in the active, power up this guy, and the difference between this guy and Venusaur, well, you know, the best part about this guy is that you can swing for 40 and it's a basic, so you don't have to evolve it. And yeah, that's the best situation I can see this card in. I don't know if it's gonna be good. I mean, you can tank hits for a basic one and just poke with 20, I guess. Other than that, I don't think it's that good. Maybe, like I say, you just start with this guy, you level up this guy, give all the energy to him, and then evolve, and maybe you can just use that as a, you know, hit really hard out of nowhere if you manipulate the energy. Might work. We can only wait and see, as everything, as the vast majority in this of these cards. So Morelu, pretty basic. If this card is good, it's all gonna depend on the evolution. So 60 HP, 20 damage, 1 energy, pretty normal. And now Exeggute. So the main difference between this card, I mean the only difference between this card and the original one, is the attack. So for 1 colorless energy, that means you can play this in any color deck. You can take a grass energy from your energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. So Exeggute. That means you can use Exeggute, either the EX or the normal one, in any deck, in any color deck. That's amazing, because this card is really good. You can just start swinging really hard, really early. And the fact that you can use this in anything, amazing, right? It's gonna be a really good Pokemon to use. Yeah, I can't wait to see the best options for this, because there's so many options that, I mean, I'm not gonna put that much effort into thinking about it. But there's something I want to say, and is that this card, it's not perfect. There's a cost to everything. And the cost for this card is that if we go to the original combo in a grass deck, the good part about this is that you start with this guy, right? You go first. You put this guy in the active, then it's the enemy turn, then it's your turn. And in your second turn, you can attach 1 energy into this guy, evolve into Exeggutor, and just start attacking with 30, threatening 60, or 40, threatening 80. That's amazing, right? And that's the big power of Exeggutor, that if you go first, you can start attacking hard really early, while the enemy just has a basic Pokemon. Maybe you can even knock them out, and you can put a lot of pressure. And that's a problem with this card, because if you play this in a non-grass deck, you won't be able to attack. I mean, going first, you won't be able to attack until your turn 3, not turn 2 as the original grass deck. And why is that? Because let's say you go first, okay? You go first, you have this card in the active, you end your turn, it's the enemy turn, now it's your turn. And let's say you play this in a fire deck. So you attach a fire energy, you cool the bulb, but you shouldn't because it only has a fire energy. You can't attack still with Executor. So you have to attack with Execute, you attach a grass energy, and now it's the enemy turn. His second turn. So he needs to pass to be your third turn, and in your third turn, now you have a fire and grass energy. Now you can evolve into Executor. But it's your third turn. Like, the enemy had 2 turns to attack into your Execute. So that's the cost of it. If you go first, you will not be able to attack with this Pokemon, I mean with Executor, until your third turn. Now, if you go second, then it's not a problem. If you go second, then things go exactly the same because it's the enemy turn, then your turn, attach a fire energy, attack, attach the grass energy, and by your turn 2, going second, you can already evolve into Executor and start swinging. So if you go second, it doesn't matter. It's the exact same thing as if you play a grass deck. But if you go first, then you have to wait an extra turn to attack with Executor. And well, let's see how that works. Now let's talk Larvesta. I mean, this card, the same as this guy, it will depend on the evolution because by its own, 2 energy for a basic Pokemon, it's really bad. This card is bad by its own, so it depends on the evolution. Magmar. So for 80, okay, not for 80, it has 80 HP fire Pokemon. For 2 energies, you can attack for 80. And you have to discard 2 fire energies from this Pokemon. So 80 damage, and then you have to wait another 2 turns to attack again. It's pretty bad. And even if you combine this with something like Blaine, right? Blaine does 30 more damage if you have Magmar. So 30 more damage, that's 110. 110, it's bad damage as well, like barely bad damage. You cannot even knock out Vaporeon. So 110 damage, pretty bad. And the fact that you can only swing every 2 turns, pretty bad as well. This card, I don't think is gonna see any play. I mean, unless there's more cards in this pack that support Magmar. Other than that, I don't think this card is gonna be good at all. But you know what? Maybe going second, it might be good. But I don't know. We can only wait and see as well. Finally, because we already talked about Leaf, we have Blue. So during your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 10 less damage from attacks from your opponent. And we were talking about the fact that Mew one-shots Mewtwo with its own attack, and Tauros one-shots Pikachu. Well, if the Mew player or Pikachu player uses Blue, now you're not one-shotting them, and that's a card that they may want to play. I mean, they may want to main just because of that reason. It's a good counter to these 2 cards. And that's something Mew cannot do. I mean, if it receives 150 damage, even if you reduce the attack by 10, you still get knocked out. So this card, I can see this card being played in Mewtwo and Pikachu decks. Especially Mewtwo because it also helps in the mirror match. 150 damage, you have 150 help. It will help a lot. So maybe you main one of this in your Mewtwo deck to counter another Mewtwo deck and Mew decks as well. And I also see this card being used a lot in tournaments. I mean, tournaments that are flooded with Pikachu and Mewtwo. So if you have a Mewtwo, I mean, if you have this card to counter your mirror match as a Mewtwo player, you want to do that. So pretty good. It will depend on the deck. Not everyone is going to use this. Pretty niche. But yeah, it might give Mewtwo a little bit more advantage. I mean, something to defend themselves, which I don't know if they need it, but they have it. They certainly have it. And like I said, we already talked about Leaf. And that's it from this new cards from the new pack. If you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for, looking all of it. I really appreciate it. And we want to hit 150 subscribers. So if you can help with this tiny channel, any like, any comment, I really appreciate it. It helps a lot. And like I say, let's hit 150 subscribers. I hope I do. That's a really minimum amount. That's kind of funny, but you have to start somewhere, right? So, oh my god, I'm losing my voice. Thank you for watching. That's it. I'm excited for this pack. I hope you are. I know you are. Everyone is. This is pretty cool. And that's it. Bye.